Transliteration. Brahman, my dear Brahmana, Duhitribihi, by the daughters themselves, Tubhyam, for you, Vimargyaha, to be found out, Patayaha, husbands, Samaha, suitable, Kaschit, someone, Syat, there should be, Me, my, Vishokaya, for solace, Twayi, when you, Pravarjite, departed, Vanam, to the forest. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear Brahmana, as far as your daughters are concerned, they will find their own suitable husbands and go away to their respective homes. But who will give me solace after your departure as a sannyasi? Please repeat after me. My dear Brahmana, as far as your daughters are concerned, they will find their own suitable husbands and go away to their respective homes. But who will give me solace after your departure as a sannyasi? Purport. It is said that the Father himself becomes the Son in another form. The Father and Son are therefore considered to be non-different. A widow who has her son is actually not a widow because she has a representative of her husband. Similarly, Devahuti is indirectly asking Kardama Muni to leave a representative so that in his absence she might be relieved of her anxiety by a suitable son. A householder is not expected to remain at home for all his days. After getting his sons and daughters married, a householder can retire from household life, leaving his wife in the charge of the grown-up sons. That is the social convention of the Vedic system. Devahuti is indirectly asking that in his absence from home, there be at least one male child to give her relief from her anxieties. This relief means spiritual instruction. Relief does not mean material comforts. Material comforts will end with the end of the body, but spiritual instruction will not end. It will go on with the spirit soul. Instruction in spiritual advancement is necessary, but without having a worthy son, how could Devahuti advance in spiritual knowledge? It is the duty of the husband to liquidate his debt to his wife. The wife gives a sincere service to the husband, and he becomes indebted to her because one cannot accept service from his subordinate without giving him something in exchange. The spiritual master cannot accept service from a disciple without awarding him spiritual instruction. That is the reciprocation of love and duty. Thus, Devahuti reminds her husband, Kardama Muni, that she had rendered him faithful service, even considering the situation on the basis of liquidating his debt toward his wife. he must give a male child before he leaves. Indirectly, Devahuti requests her husband to remain at home a few days more, or at least until a male child is born. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Shakshurunmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Mukam karoti vatsalam pango langayate girim. Yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Guru Shri Dinatarinam. Tavaivasmi na jivami tavaivina. Iti vigya devi tvam nayamam charanantikam. Hare Krishna. Good morning. Welcome to this morning's Bhagavatam class. Just something, you can pass it on to, hey Gopal, pass it on to somebody, Pujari. The Maharaji doing Aarti, she's messing up the sequence. First comes Chamara, then comes Vyanjana. But she's doing it the other way around, so if somebody can let her know. I've noticed a few times. So. All right. It's a curse of Prahlad. I always get verses like this. Again, I'll be referring to Manus Samhita a lot and some of the teachings of Prabhupada verbatim. So this class might come across a bit offensive to people who subscribe to feminism, independence of women, the woke culture. So I request if you subscribe to those things, kindly go and listen to something else, because this might not be suitable or might come across offensive to you. All right, on that note, here independence is spoken. Independence is a bit of an elusive concept. Everybody wants to be independent. Everybody, all living entities, man, women, even children nowadays, they all want to be independent. Even children, they want to declare independence. They can go to the court and tell that they don't want to be dependent on their parents. So everybody is interested in independence. Independence, in one sense, is so that they can enjoy their senses or act according to their own wish, not according to the wish of any higher authority. But this elusive concept of independence is strange, because the more and more the living entity fights hard to be independent, the more and more the living entity gets entangled. That's how the nature of the material world works. The more you want to become independent, the more you become tangled. It's generally, that's not how things work. If you want to be scholarly, you study more, you study a lot of scriptures, you understand, you philosophize, then you can become scholarly in regular terms. But when it comes to independence, it's the other way around. It's not like one studies books, becomes scholarly, and by doing that he becomes less scholarly. No, usually one becomes scholarly by following certain path. If a person wants to build their body, They go and do exercise, they go to the gym, they work out, they go run and do a lot of things. By doing that, they become physically healthy. It's not the other way around. They don't become weak. They don't lose muscles by going to the gym. But independence is such a concept where the more and more you try, the more and more you manipulate the material energy and want to become independent or declare yourself independent, the more and more one becomes entangled. And not only entangled, it becomes more and more miserable or unhappy. That's the nature of independence. On the other way around, it might sound a bit oxymoron here. The other way around, the more and more an individual realizes that he is not independent, he is a subordinate, and he has to surrender to a higher authority, then he actually becomes independent. The more and more a person becomes dependent on the lotus feet of the Lord, becomes more independent. It's strange, isn't it? You become dependent, completely dependent. You surrender yourself unto the spiritual master, unto the lotus feet of the Lord, and to the Mahatmas, pure devotees. The more you become, the gradation where the more percentage you are surrendered or give up your independence and let Krishna take a handle over your life, and then the more independent you actually become. That's oxymoron with independence. So the living entities, man, women, everybody want to be independent. That's why we ended up here. It's like being in a jail. You try to be more independent in the jail, you get punished more. But if you actually follow the instructions of the jail and act according to the processes set up within the confines of the jail, you are given independence. He's like, oh, he's not a troublemaker, so he can have extra 1 hour to go and walk outside, or give him a good food because he's not a troublemaker. He follows. Same thing here, because we also, the living entities, we also live or are confined in the jail of material nature. So here, in this jail, the more we fight to prove our independence, the more you're put into harder or darker situations. That is the nature of the jail. And this material energy, the material world, is a jail. And outside of the jail, if you look at the living entities, they are free, relatively. To give an example, they are free because they adhere to the rules and regulations set out by the government or the authorities. By actually dependent or being submissive, voluntarily giving up their independence and submissive to the rules and regulations set up by the authority in the outside world, the citizens are free. For example, I own a car, I declare myself independent, I just break all the rules, drive here and there, it's my car, I'm independent, whatever I can do. But if you do that, if you showcase your independence outside on the street, you get booked. And if you violate too many times, you get charged. You know what I'm saying? The same thing here. The person being dependent on Krishna, the more and more, he is awarded, or he becomes actually free from the tangles of the clutches, or the tangles, or the miseries of this material world. So everybody is dependent. What is that verse from 7th canto? Icha dvesha samudvena dvanda mohena bharata. The icha, desire to be independent or desire to enjoy like Krishna. And dvesha, out of that need for intelligence, acting in an envious form towards Krishna. Icha and dvesha. This is the reason, icha dvesha samudvena, dvanda mohena, because of these two need for independence, desire for independence, and artificial independence, and being envious, one is cast into the dualities, dvandva mohena bharata, dualities of illusion, moha. One artificially thinks they're actually enjoying, but they're actually cast under a system which binds them more and more and more. The more you struggle, the more it binds, like a quicksand. Anybody seen a quicksand? I haven't seen it or heard about it, or read about it, or seen in YouTube. Apparently, we have some quicksand in Fraser Island, part of the world, northern Queensland. Same thing with quicksand. If you get stuck in quicksand, the more you struggle to free yourself, the more it sucks you in. One has to be peaceful, and there's a way to get out. If you follow those instructions, then you can free yourself. But if you just struggle, want to break your clutches and become independent, the quicksand drags you more and more. Same thing. The material energy is designed in such a way, it drags you in. Daivihi esha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mamevahi prapadyante maya metam tarantite. The Daivihi, this material energy, is my own energy, Krishna says. And it's very hard to overcome. The only way to overcome is by accepting me, or accepting Krishna, accepting his instructions. Mamevahi prapadyante, by surrendering, by voluntarily giving up one's independence to the lotus feet of Krishna, to the instructions of Krishna, to the Vedic system, then one can actually get out of this material world. Otherwise, the independence, what we perceive, is just an illusion. Dvanda mohena bharata, prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasha, ahankara vimuratma kartahamiti manyate. The embodied soul, embodied within Prakriti, covered by the 5 elements, thinks he is the doer. But the actual doer is the material energy, our Krishna, through his material energy. So any independence we try or think we are, achieving the independence, kartaham, when you think that, I'm working, doing this, I'm doing that, I'm manipulating this, I'm manipulating that, by this I'm going to get some intelligence, get some independence. No, that's not the case. Here Devahuti requests her husband to offer her a suitable male child. So we just saw Devahuti has given birth to 9 daughters. Generally, daughters are not considered part of the family. If a girl is born in a family, she's generally not considered. She's considered the temporary member of the family, because as soon as she gets married, her relationship with her paternal family is cut. She becomes the member of the family she married into. So during Vedic ceremony, the wedding ceremony, after the wedding ceremony finishes, the lineage, the gotra of the child, of the female child, she gives up the gotra of the parents and accepts the gotra of the husband. So she has a change in gotra, the lineage. She doesn't belong, as soon as the wedding happens, she doesn't belong to the lineage of the father. She becomes member of the lineage of the husband. So, even if you go to temples, when they do archana for the deities, on behalf of, if they ask what's your gotra, the female generally tells the gotra of the, not generally, supposed to tell the gotra of her husband. because she doesn't belong to the father's family. So here, same thing, even though Devahuti had 9 daughters, she knew that they don't belong to her family, the family of Kardama Muni. These daughters are going to go and marry. They marry, the 9 daughters go and marry 9 Prajapatis. And once they marry, they tie their responsibility towards the family, her parents' family is finished. They're not responsible. They're not responsible to look after the father. They're not responsible to look after the mother, or the traditions within the father's family. No, her responsibility is to look after the husband, her children, the husband's parents, the husband's relatives. So that becomes her responsibility. That becomes her primary responsibility. If she doesn't follow, or if she doesn't withhold the responsibilities of looking after the husband, children, husband's parents, then she's not following her dharma properly. But if you say our daughter doesn't look after the parents, no, that's not the dharma of a daughter. That's why the Vedic system insists of having a male child. The whole the importance given to bearing a male child is emphasized again and again in Vedic scriptures because of this reason. Because if you just have daughters, they're not responsible. So Devahuti reminds her husband of all these things. That you just gave me daughters and you decided to leave, but who's going to look after me? The daughters are not responsible. They're not. And daughters are not also expected to acquire and teach Vedic knowledge. They're not required. Their dharma is fulfilled if they just serve a suitable husband who is qualified, and they get, by doing that, they become purified and they become eligible to go back to Godhead. It's a very simpler process. What is that? 9 chapter 32 Bhagavad Gita. Mam hi partha vipashishta epiyo papayoneya Shriya Vaishya Tata Sudra Yanti Param Gatim. Women, Vaishyas or Shudras, even though they are not considered higher birth, they can still Param Gatim, achieve Param Gati by following their own processes. And here the process of a female here is serving her husband. And we have seen that in previous chapter, how diligently Devahuti serves her husband. She's not in some kind of independence tantrum and want to be independent. No, she wants to serve her husband. And she understands by doing that process, the husband gives a qualified son, and the qualified son helps her out to go back to God. Simple process, done. Don't need to complicate. So, the importance of having a son. Not only that, the son, Manu Samhita, Manu says, Putrartha kriyate bharya. Putra pinda prayojana. Manu Samhita. Bharya means wife. In Telugu they call bharya, isn't it? Telugu, in some languages, bharya. It's a Sanskrit word, means wife. A bharya means, in Tamil they call samsaram, which means one who holds you into the material world. Yeah. So in Sanskrit or in some Indian languages, bharya is referred to wife. So Manu says a person is a wife because, or she becomes a qualified, or she fulfills a duty of a wife by giving birth to a son, a suitable son. So, putrartha kriyate bharya. Bharya's kriya or duty is to give a putra. Without giving a putra, a son, a bharya's duty is unfulfilled. Okay? So, we have now modern ideas, even within devotee circles. They just want to have one daughter, and they said, yeah, that's good enough. Or they decide, we just want a husband and wife, we just want to serve Krishna. We don't want to have any children. These are all not bona fide according to scriptural injunctions. The duty of the wife is to have a son. And that son is supposed to be a qualified son, not a fool. Supposed to be a qualified son. So what's the definition of a son? Putra pinda prayojana. So the son, the prayojana of the son. Prayojana means the usability of the son. The usefulness of the son is when he can offer pinda, or can liberate the parents and the ancestors, the mother and father, by offering pinda, or by performing pure devotional service. By performing pure devotional service, a son liberates the forefathers. Liberates the forefathers. The definition of putra is pun nama narakena tasmat trayate iti putra. Pun matra, pun nama naraka. Naraka means hellish planets, named Pun, a person who liberates, trayate, liberates, tasmat, one who liberates the forefathers from the hellish condition of life, he is called a putra. That's the definition of a putra. So there's two ways of doing it. One takes up the karmakanda process. I wouldn't say karmakanda process. By following the rules and regulations of the scriptures more strictly and offering pinda, oblations for the parents, a person liberates the parents. The other way of doing it is by accepting pure devotional service. By becoming a pure devotee and by cleansing himself, by purifying himself and attaining the lotus feet of the Lord, a pure devotee liberates 14 generations. In some places it's mentioned 14, some places it's mentioned 10 generations in the before him and after him. Like Prahlad Maharaj. I think it is 14 or 10. I think 72 sounds a bit exaggerated, but hey, I don't know. These are the two I remember. I think in Prahlad Maharaj in Bhagavatam it says 10, that he liberated 10 generations before and after. And similarly, you can see the example of Dhruva Maharaj. Even though his mother, Dhruva Maharaj's mother, woman considered not so intelligent, but because Dhruva Maharaj has attained perfection, what is this? Suruchi? Suniti. Suniti got offered the same opportunity for liberation. She jumped on a plane along with Dhruva Maharaj. She didn't declare independence. She just kept to her family, even though the husband and his co-wife or her co-wives were abusive towards her. She still maintained her Sri Dharma. Gave birth to a good son, and that good son instructed the good son to take up devotional service. If she didn't make the son just send him to Karmi school and become contaminated by all this material ideas. No, she sent him to the forest, which is, in modern terms, we can take it as not modern terms, in general terms, you can take it as a gurukula, where, the son is sent and he gets educated and, meeting Narada Muni, he gets educated and practices devotional service and get to see the Lord. And as soon as he is purified, he got to see the Lord, and he got this, when he was promoted, Krishna created a Vaikuntha planet just for him. And Suniti also automatically got. She didn't need to put in any extra effort. She automatically got the same benediction what Dhruva Maharaj got. So, going back, so the duty of the wife, duty of the Bharya, is to have a qualified son. One can offer pinda to the forefathers or teach devotional service so that the ancestors can get purified. There's also a bit of an extension to it is, again, Manu Samhita. What is it in 12th canto or 11th canto? It says, Deva Rishi Bhutapti Ninam Prithinam. A living entity, when a person takes birth, he is automatically indebted to Deva Rishis, fellow living entities, Rishis, Nunam, fellow human beings, living entities in the sense, not like animals and birds and trees and plants. Nunam, human beings, fellow human beings. Pritrinam, to the forefathers. A person is born in debt. A person is born in debt. So, if that person gives birth to a child, a male child, a qualified male child, his debt is fulfilled for the Deva Rishis, for the fellow Bhutas or living entities, for the fellow human beings, for the forefathers. Because having a son, a qualified son, he naturally, trained properly, performs devotional service. And by performing devotional service, he becomes dear to Krishna, and because of him becoming dear to Krishna, he is freed from all the debts, what he owes, or his forefathers owes. Because when a person is born, he is indebted to his parents because they gave birth. He's indebted to his forefathers because that's a lineage he comes through. Without the lineage, a person can't take birth. If one of the forefathers decides, look, I'm just not going to get married or not going to have children, then it puts a stop. Just because the forefathers went through the austerity of getting married, having children, one gets the opportunity to have a human form of life. So then naturally the person is indebted to their forefathers. To the fellow human beings, we are always dependent. Even though we try to be, as I spoke before, we try to be independent, but we are naturally dependent on a lot of fellow human beings. We are dependent on the farmer so that he produces food grains. We depend on the farmer because he milks the cows, looks after the cows and milks the cows so we can have the milk to nourish our brains. In modern days, we depend on the garbage men to come and pick up our garbage. Otherwise, it becomes messy. So human beings is indebted to the forefathers, the fellow human beings. He's also indebted to Bhutanam, to the fellow living entities, like cow, for example, gives milk. Without cow's milk, a person can't be intelligent. His intelligent coefficient is based on the amount of milk he consumes. So the Vedic system based importance on the cows. So he is naturally indebted to the cow. The bull, in the Vedic system, the bull works the field. So he is indebted to the bulls. Even to little things like the earthworm. Because of the earthworm, the earth is kept fertile or fertile. So he is indebted to the earthworm. So a person born is, and they were rishis. They are given all the scriptures and the rules and regulations how he can become a civilized human being and live peacefully. It's given by Deva Rishis, all the sages. So a person is born in debt, and that debt is fulfilled by having a qualified son. And that son, taking up devotional service, ensures that all this debt is purified. So that's the importance of here Devahuti. Even though she had 9 daughters, insisting to have a son. It's an important point here. And here Prabhupada explains, having a son is non-different. The son is non-different from the father. Like we have a similar situation in the Mangalarti. We sing Sakshat Haridvena Samasta Shastra. All the scriptures say that the Guru is Sakshat, is non-different from Krishna, because the Guru imparts the same knowledge Krishna has imparted. Similar here, a similar example here. The son is a representative of the father. A son fulfills the duties of what a father needs to fulfill to his mother. So naturally, he is a representative of the father. He is non-different from the father. So here Prabhupada explains that a widow is not considered a widow if her husband has left her a qualified son. Again, Manu Samhita, it says, Stri Swatantra na arhati. The same arhati word is used in second chapter of Bhagavad Gita in 2 verses. Na kaschit kartum arhasi. I guess second chapter, 17th word, avinashitat vidhi. Arhati means arhati means doesn't qualify. So here, in a spoken language, women should not be independent. By Manu. It's a controversial statement to make now, but again, I'm speaking scriptures. So women doesn't qualify for intelligence. Same thing with children. Children don't qualify for independence. If you leave a child independently, they will get abused. Same thing if a woman declares independence, she also gets abused, which we can see in the modern age. Women has educated themselves and gone out to get jobs and careers, and you can see they have many partners. So they get to mix with men, rub shoulders with men, and all these things pollute the womanhood. And therefore, naturally, women are not given intelligence according to the Vedic system, because women becomes a reservoir of a good progeny. She is the medium through which a good progeny is obtained. Only through good progeny you will have a peaceful society. And only having a peaceful society, one can perform devotional service without headache. And by performing devotional service without headache, one can quickly circumvent this samsara. So women becomes very important, precious, unpolluted. Women becomes precious. So the Vedic system emphasis is to protect women, not just give them independence and send them on the street. And they mix with men, and then they're overcome by sexual desire, and then they get progeny. And if they get the progeny, now they kill the progeny within the womb, and the government has given the independence to do that. So these are all demoniac society, and which Arjuna points out in the very first chapter of Bhagavad Gita. What is that text? Chapter 1, text 39. Kulakshaya pranayashanti kulanasha sanatanam dharma nasti. Dharma nasti, destruction of dharma. Dharma nasti Krishnam Adharma abhibhavat tvaya. Yeah. But not by giving independence to women, by not following the Kula Dharma, sending out women outside to mix freely on the name of career, and so that she can bring few bucks so you can pay your mortgage quickly. You risk by polluting them. And by polluting, giving them an opportunity to get polluted, dharma nasti, the dharma becomes destroyed. And just because the dharma gets destroyed, adharma becomes abhibhavat, prevalent. And the next verse, 140, adharma abhibhavat Krishna, pradushanti kulastriya, strishu dushashtu vashneya, jayate varna shankara. When the womanhood gets polluted, since there is no dharma, the society becomes composed of varna shankaras. Varna shankaras. And what happens? The next verse, 141. Shankara, what is it? Narakaiva, something like that, yeah. I forgot the verse. So because of the population becoming predominantly of Shankaras, Varna Shankaras, it becomes Naraka, a hellish condition. The populations are so demoniac, it becomes hellish. And become hellish, where is suitable opportunity for one to practice devotional service? So just one trigger, which Arjuna points out, the independence of women. Because of the whole society is dragged down to Varna Shankaras. I mean, you hear the news of the schools, even all these private schools, very expensive schools. You see what the children do, you see in the news. They just do abominable activities. Children. They do abominable activities as children. Because even though they come from so-called rich families, they go to rich schools, the activities they perform are completely demoniac, even in the very childhood. Imagine these children grow up and compose of society. There is no more civility. If the society hangs on a very thin thread, as soon as something little happens, the people just become animals. They behave like animals. They immediately, they don't even think twice. They immediately become animals. They start behaving like animals. There's a thin, veneer of humanity which just appears to exist. You can see when the COVID hit, the people just went completely uncivil just for toilet paper. Just pulling each other's hair. Because we are living in the society of Varna Shankaras. Because at one point the society has decided, we have to give independence, equal rights to the women, we should send them out. The exact term Prabhupada uses is, send them out to become prostitutes, give them independence and they're all prostitutes. That's what Prabhupada says, his words verbatim. It's not something I'm saying. So, you can see, so here, Devahuti, requesting her husband, pointing out that, hey, you're leaving me alone by not being protected. And that is not the culture. That's not the civilized way of living. So she's pointing it out to her husband. You need to give me a son so I can live under his guidance and his protection. So the Vedic understanding, the cultural understanding is not the Western understanding or the modern understanding, which is pretty much based on demoniac mentality. The Vedic understanding is a woman is always under the protection of the father when she is young. And as soon as she hits puberty, she must be handed over to a qualified husband. So the qualified husband take in charge. Not the father anymore or the parents anymore. She can't be like, oh, I'm running back to my father. No, she's been taken responsibility of a qualified husband. She serves the husband. And if this husband has to give her, award her as a reciprocation for her service, he becomes his duty, his debt. His debt, here Prabhupada uses the word debt, is dissolved by giving that son to her, and she becomes under the control of the son. And it doesn't stop there. If the son becomes, comes to the age where he needs to renounce, and she becomes under the control of the grandchildren. Under the control of her grandchildren. So, grandson. So you can see the Vedic system, women is always under the protection and the guidance of a male member of the society, male member of the family, and not left outside on the street to beg for either for a husband or for maintenance. And according to Prabhupada, that independence, he calls it as prostitution. Nowadays, the women, the fathers are not responsible to find a suitable husband, so the women has to find their own husbands. So they're going out hunting for men. This guy, that guy. That's the nature of a prostitute. I'm going around the world to find a suitable husband. That's the nature of a prostitute. Considering, this guy's going to be a good husband. According to Prabhupada, she's always thinking of one guy or another guy. So that's the mentality of prostitute. And because of that, the progeny she gets is not going to be a qualified progeny. So it's all a nicely woven science, how things work out. And it is said, the son, Mata Priya Chikirshaya, again by Manu. Manu says the son has to look after the mother. Priya means very affectionately. Chikirshaya means to look after, to treat her, to look after her in a very affectionate manner. It's not like, just the old cow here and mistreat her. No. She's looked after nicely. Nowadays, what do they do? Now, the parents ditch the kids at the child care center so that they can become corporate wives and corporate husbands. And as soon as they get old, the child ditches them in old age home. There's no Priya Chikitsaya, as Manu says. The wife is the mother is supposed to stay at home, feed the child, look after the child, give all the love and happiness the child require, look after the husband. No, she wants to become a corporate wife. So what happens? The son grows. The son naturally doesn't have affection for the mother anymore because, you dumped me. I'm under the care of. Usually, child care centers are looked after by, teenage girls or some people who have no real affection to you. You can see that in Krishna book, Mother Yashoda, she's always protecting her son. Always, anything goes wrong, she immediately puts him in his lap, showers him with love. Even by doing that, Krishna left. What to speak of the children nowadays, where the mother feed the bottle. She doesn't feed the children anymore. She feeds the bottle, and the bottle is fed by somebody to the child. And when the child grows up, the child gets the first opportunity, ditches the parents, and the child is just waiting when the parents are going to die so that he or she can take their properties. And that's the society we live in. Isn't it true? Isn't that? Now, even in India, they are starting old age homes. This concept never existed. The children looked after the parents. It's a duty. It's a duty. To Devahuti is reminding or Kadama Muni of his duty, that the reason he should give her a son. This is Vedic system. This is Krishna's system. By following Krishna's system, one can live peacefully. There's no anxiety. There's no anxiety. Even my personal life, my grandmother, a good devotee, she's initiated by my spiritual master. And she used to tell me as a child, she used to keep banging on about it, that, I'm a woman, I can't be independent, I should be always under the protection of a male child. And my father is not very spiritual, or at least now he's changed a bit, but when I was young, he was not interested. She used to tell me, I don't know, it's your responsibility, you're the grandson, you should look after me spiritually. She used to she'll keep reminding of my debt. Always kept reminding of my debt. And when I left home, I went to Mayapur, she also said, look, I'm also going to Vrindavan. And so she left to Vrindavan. My spiritual master called her and said, women, you can't be independent. She's a 70-year-old lady. My spiritual master called her, and you know what? She listened to him. She said, yes, you're right. And she went back home. So that's the Vedic culture. Well, this is a long purport, and there's other things to speak. You can also see Kadama Muni also, he's also a responsible Brahmana. A Brahmana is not somebody who just took birth in a family of Brahmana. That doesn't qualify a person as a Brahmana. A person who actually follows the Brahmanical culture, he's a Brahmana. In 12th canto it says, Shutrameva Vipra. In Kali Yuga, but just by having the thread, one considers to be a Brahmana. And that's not how it is. A Brahmana is somebody who practices the Brahmanical culture. So it is said, a Brahmana should definitely follow the last two ashramas. He can't skip the last two ashramas. The last two ashramas are Vanaprastha and Sannyas. Other varnas, they can skip, but a person who considers himself a Brahmana or lives according to the Brahmanical tradition, he is not allowed, he can't skip the last two ashramas. He is supposed to take renunciation. He may not be formally taking a sannyas, but one has to renounce his family. It is mandatory for a Brahmana. So based on that, here, Kadama Muni is also voluntarily retiring from his family. Even though Devahuti is not an ordinary woman, in previous verses when the qualities of Devahuti is addressed, she's a pure devotee. She's expert. She's explained as or addressed as expert in the Yoga Shastra. Yoga Shastra in Bhagavatam means Bhakti Yoga. She's considered expert. So Kardamuni is not telling, oh, my wife is a pure devotee, so I'm just going to hang out and give her association and take her association. No. When the right time came, he is prompting to take sannyas, to keep up his Brahmana dharma. That is important. So the Vedic system is generally women, Vedic system, at least when she's 16, she gets married to a guy, and the guy should be within the age of 25. By 25 years, a person should get married. After that, it's considered late, because when he gets married and has a child, and when he becomes 25, the child becomes 25. So the father can renounce, and the child can take up the responsibility. So that's a Vedic system. So it's designed in such a way. But now, girls want to go and have 2 degrees. So they are, when they finish their degrees, they are 30. And then you can't marry a guy younger. So then they marry a guy who is older than him. And if you marry when the guy becomes older and the woman becomes older, the opportunity of getting a female child decreases. I think it's explained in 2 verses before, if I remember. 2 or 3 verses before those principles are explained. So what we have subscribed to, the modern way of living, it just doesn't work. It just causes more and more. It's self-perpetuating entanglement, or just misleading. It just goes on and on and on into degrading the society. But who's following? Anyways, it is what it is. On that note, I will finish here. It's 9 o'clock. If you have any questions, comments, corrections, discussions. Yeah. What is it? Yad yad acharita sheshta tat tat evataro janaha. Devahuti, that's how I was saying, Devahuti is a very intelligent person and is a very qualified person. She didn't declare independence. She still wants to follow the proper process. She didn't say, hey, I'm a qualified person. She's a granddaughter of Brahma. Her father is Shakti-Avesh avatar, Swayambhava Manu. He is a partial incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So by her asking a son, is she trying to follow the etiquette?
She's following the etiquette. She's following the etiquette. She's setting an example how a woman should behave. She's setting an etiquette. And, she don't want to be left alone. As a woman, that's not the right way to do. And if you're around, what a devotee does,